interesting concepts, and they put them out, they got them published, and it's only recently that they've all been rebutted and refuted and like demystified, because they came up with a lot of inaccurate things about India and Indian history, very distorted. And it's only recently that a ton of research has been done to really correct all of that. So I'm happy to say that it's happening. It's not happening fast enough, but it's slowly happening. And also, the other interesting issue is the new atheists. So there was a time when you had people like Richard Dawkins and even Christopher Hitchens, I think, and many sort of atheists who they didn't believe in any religion, any God, any faith, anything, no universal consciousness. They were just pure scientists. But now you're getting people like Sam Harris who concede, and I'm happy to see that they are, who say that no, you can be mindful, you can meditate. There is a presence. There's something beyond just science. There's something that you can't explain that we know that is beautiful and happening, and we are all connected energetically and all of that. So even science is now sort of coming to where spirituality has been. I don't think that science has always been at the forefront. I don't think that science has the answers. I think for the most important questions in life, that are who are we, where did I come from, where am I going, I don't think science has the answers. I think spiritual philosophies and traditions have the answer, because they have eternally answered those. And that's why you look at some of these Indic faiths. All they are is about who am I, where am I going, and they talk about we are not the mind and the body, but we are the soul, the Atma, that the spirit that is inside, and the Atma never dies. That's why in Hinduism we believe in reincarnation and many lives, because when the body dies, the spirit does not die, and nor does it go to heaven or hell. If it has gained moksha, it goes back into universal consciousness. But if it has not gained moksha, it will wait to reincarnate into another body and mind, so that it gets another run on what we call planet Earth. And that's our brief concept of Hinduism, which is why, and that's where the concept of karma comes from. Because karma is also not just, it's not like action reaction. Karma is of the soul. So it's the soul that's the karmic blueprint. So you look at someone like Donald Trump and you think, how is this man? He has so much power, and maybe he's done some wrong things. Well, who knows what he was in his past life? Could have been a incredible human being, which has been lots of gifts, born into a very fortunate family, and he has the karma of someone very, very fortunate and great power. And what he chooses to do with it will yield future karma. Maybe his next lifetime will be miserable because of the actions of this lifetime. But you can't blame someone and say this person is a bad person, but they're rich. Why? I think the concept of karma proves that the soul doesn't die. There is Atma, and there is universal consciousness, which is the Brahman. So but it's nice to see these new atheists kind of concede that there's a middle ground. I think my only problem with them is, again, some of them, they don't cite where some of this, because even someone like Sam Harris, he's someone who's traveled to India and Nepal, learned meditation, met the monks, has some knowledge of Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism and so on. And he distinguishes Abrahamic religions from Indic faiths, but I think he needs to be more clear of a lot of the things that he talks about. They do have a root in Sanatana Dharma, and he can't just, he can't just lump all faiths in one corner and say, oh no, this is nothing to do with faith. It's nothing to do with science either. You have to understand that there are philosophical, spiritual concepts within the framework of faiths that he has clearly touched on. And he talks about Buddhism, but I think it's a bit disingenuous when 80% of Buddhism does come from Hinduism, and he doesn't, I think, do a fair job of giving enough credence to the original source of it all, which is Sanatana Dharma. which kind of gave roots to, which gave the birth to or fruits to some of these other faiths. So I have a problem with that uh, issue with some of these sort of new atheists. I think they either haven't done their deep research, or they have, but they don't want to, you know, I don't know.
attribute
They
it.
don't want to be honest about where they found this great knowledge, because it takes away from their own originality to say that, oh yeah, I read it in this Vedic Shastra. That was around thousands of years ago.
And as somebody who came from a Christian background myself, I came from that. Growing up, was raised as that, and as a child, I wanted to be a pastor. I was very passionate about it as a youngster, but at some point, I I think just my own understanding of reality and the world has had pushed me into pretty much pure atheism, and until somewhat recently, I've kind of come to a point to where I believe in certain things like collective consciousness and things like that, and I think it's come from just a conglomeration of just different podcasts, different information, all these sorts of things. I don't actually know where I got the information from myself, but I think that that's something that does kind of happen when like from Christianity even I've kind of cherry picked the bits and pieces that I like about you know how kind of how who Jesus was. He was seemed like a really
Yes,
good person, and I think
he was a yogi. He was a yogi person. He was a real yogi.
and I think that me, someone who doesn't even believe in that necessarily there was a man named Jesus, because I can't confirm it, uh, but possibly there was, and there was, multiple scriptures written from different areas about him, so there's a good chance. But there was also, a story written about Atlantis, so we can, go back as far as we want in history and find this information, and we can take it literally or metaphorically or a number of combinations. But I think at some point we all have to kind of figure out what makes sense to us, and for a lot of us, I think just kind of being pigeonholed into a strict religion, as far as this is how it is, you have to do all of this. It's just not appealing for a lot of people, and I think that may be another part of that equation as to why maybe people just take the bits they like, the mindfulness, the meditation, the stretching, and turn that into their own version of yoga, and leave out the
Yeah,
other bits, whether that's something they did intentionally or they were taught that. There's a
yeah.
number of things that could be going on there. Um, but what are your thoughts on that?
That's a good point. Yeah, it may suit them, but it's not. One, they're not getting the full. You can't reject all the philosophy and just take some bits, because then you're not really getting the totality of everything. You can practice yoga. You don't have to be a Hindu.
Hmm.
Some do become a Hindu after they're so affected by, when they really read about it, they know that it's the path for them.
Hmm.
Uh, so in that way, you don't have to be a Hindu to practice yoga. But I think it's a bit dangerous, because some people who just want to take the stretching, and they don't know about the rest, or they don't want to take the rest, I think they're a bit half baked. Also, because yoga is deep, and you're only getting a little bit of it. There's much more to that philosophy. You can't, like, I think in the West is very much, it's transactional. It's like, okay, I have back pain, let me do some yoga to cure it. They're not talking about their soul, and they're not talking about the deep holistic problem, the holistic
Hmm.
void that exists within. They're just trying to fix problems, and yoga and meditation and mindfulness fixes some problems, but not their real full outlook in life, and not their world at large, and not the way that they live.
Hmm.
So you have to, I think, look at the totality of it. You're maybe doing yourself a bit of injustice by not really doing enough research, or not really accepting other philosophies as well that come along with yoga. And also, of course, it's a bit disrespectful to the faith that it comes from, because although you're welcome to use things for your benefit, I think to disassociate from it is not right. It's okay if you say, no, I just like yoga and that's it. But if you're in turn ridiculing Hinduism and yet you're benefiting from yoga, which seems to be happening now, I think a lot, I see it. People are quick to, they want to say they don't know anything about India or Hinduism. They love yoga, but they're quick to say bad things about the caste system or whatever when they're clueless about that origin as well. That is very dangerous and very disingenuous, and I find it very racist and bigoted. You can't do that, and then you're framing Hindu people as bad people, and they did nothing just because you didn't understand their culture properly.
And I think
Um,
in that particular aspect of it, I think does have a lot to do with social sciences and
yeah,
social norms and
what's taught also in schools and universities, because all the wrong things are being taught. I've noticed in the U.S. universities and schools, even from for kids, like when they do study religions, they seem to, and there was a big lawsuit about this. I don't know if you knew this, but the California Board of Education was, um, I don't know, 600 Indian Hindu families, I think, collectively. There was a case against California Board for their appalling depiction of Hinduism, and they were portraying even Islam as a peaceful religion, and Hinduism, the way that they were trading it, completely baseless stuff, and the way that they were going on about things that caste system is not, doesn't have anything to do with Hinduism as a faith. Caste system is a socio-economic norm that was used to divide society by their functions. The top, the person of the high castes were the priests. They were penniless. The billionaires were people in the middle. So it has nothing to do with money or power. It's got nothing to do with patriarchy or sort of a patriarchal legacy or anything like that. They divide a society based on functions. And you were born if your father was a priest, you became a priest yourself. That's just how the cookie crumbled. And it still does to a big extent. And the British, when they came, when they realized all these fragmentations in Indian Hindu culture, they decided that it's a great way to divide India. And they used, so they are very casteist because they have a class system in Britain which still exists, and it's actually atrocious. So, and they have a high class and low class. Their high class is actually rich and powerful, and the working class is not, as opposed to what is going on in India and has been going on. So they impose their version of a class system to India, and that's how this modern day caste system was born. And now you have people who hate Hinduism, and you get enemies from all over who want to bring down India as well. They only have a few weapons. One of them is a caste system, which, by the way, has been abolished in constitutionally, but it's a socioeconomic norm. And I find this appalling also in some factions of, like, the left, far left, and these Marxists. They somehow they really have taken up this cause of this lower caste and casteism in India, which they don't know anything about, and they have taken up this uh, cause as their own, and they're fighting for it. And when you see a kind of anti-India, or even like I've seen even at Tulsi, her talks and stuff, you see one person with some banner and he's talking about Hinduism and the caste system, and I think, wow, you must be so retarded because you don't know anything about it, and you're bringing up some social, like a social issue that has nothing to do with faith, you know. And so again, but so there was a case that was fought against the California board, and they won. And they had to change their horrible textbooks and the depiction of this faith in the way that they were. And it was malicious because you get boards of, you get student school boards and boards of religious religion of department of religion in universities. You'll get boards, and sometimes they're very anti-India and kind of very anti-Hindu, and they you get endowments as well and stuff by other groups, and then they make sure that the narrative is very unfavorable. Uh, so that's something that people don't know about. Why do we see? Because Hindu phobia is not in public sentiment. It's I've only seen it in two places. I've seen it in Western mainstream media or mainstream media in general, and I've seen it in academia. That's it. I have not seen it so much with any public discourse or anything else, thankfully, because there is no kind of evidence to that. But with media and academia, there is a narrative that can be formed, and you have lobbies, you have agendas. They can make anything look and feel as they like, and I think that's what they have been doing with relation to this particular issue. And people are seeing it, and they're kind of outraged about it.
And I did learn about the caste system in India in high school myself in
Yeah,
America, and just taught basically that it was a system to, like you say, separate the classes, and that there were the untouchables and all those different aspects of it.
yeah,
But it does seem like there was an emphasis on the negative aspects of it, and there's
yes,
probably a lot of context missing as well. And I personally think that context is one of the most important things when it comes to any discussion, because if we can't look at these situations in the contexts where they're formed, then we really don't have the information and knowledge that we need to make a informed decision about any of it. And that seems to be what happens a lot, is that people
yeah,
see cultures and things happening outside of their own, and because
yeah.
it's not part of their societal norms, it it does have this disgust effect, or this feeling of you know that's barbarism or some other thing, and not just Hinduism, but, and I personally haven't heard, like you say, any Hindu phobia really, but I know that there's different ways it may manifest itself, like the
In
omitting
media and
things.
academia, and it's interesting because so in your textbooks they didn't talk about yoga, but they want to talk about something that's not even related to religion, but yoga and meditation and karma and all these things that are actually part of Hinduism. They don't include things that are not part of Hinduism. They want to, and they don't do that for other faiths where the religion blatantly says kill the non-believers.
And in my class, I mean, that wasn't even a lesson on Hinduism. That was just a lesson on, you know, history and India.
Yeah.
So
But still, it's all connected, It's
mhm.
you can't. Was there a class on the history of the 1400 years of the Islamic invasion in India? No, I don't think there was,
No.
right? Even in India, they don't teach that, and we had it for 800 years. So where are you going to go from there? When you don't even know your own facts and know your own history. They romanticize the colonizers. They romanticize their invaders. That's how so because we had this small group of it's just subversive sellouts who very colonized mind, and their idea of India was something else than what it actually was, and they imposed all of these thinkings, and then the West just went with that because they don't know the original Indian thinkers and thoughts and all that. So it's a very dangerous game that academia, and that's California board. It's atrocious to think that California would do that, and especially when there is so many problems with so many other religious ideologies. We're seeing it even in our own time, and yet you want to touch on but it's not politically correct to talk about the truths, but you want to talk about these kind of half truths that are out there about other faiths just to make them look bad, and that leads to bullying and Hindu phobia and Hindu kids not feeling good about themselves when their religion is quite peaceful.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sets the Hindu religion apart from some of the other ones, and
Yeah,
but then it goes back to the case of that we all that religion is just this aspect of human life and human nature that is to explain the unexplainable and the the hereafter and kind of the soul and these things that science up until now really has kind of fallen short on. So we could just be filling the gaps in a lot of ways of our own knowledge of reality and where we came from and what our
Yeah.
purpose is. And the thing that concerns me the most about where we are as a living organism, as one cohesive organism floating in space, is that the life of humanity and the life of the environment and all the living creatures within it should come before everything else, including religion and commodification of the resources and the humans and what we have is uh, money at the top of the pyramid,
Yeah.
and then below that we have our ideologies, and then somewhere around the bottom is human life.
Is humanity.
Yeah.
And well, you're so right. And this is why I was stressing that I'd like to talk about that framework for future of humanity going forward, because ahimsa, which is of course it's non-violence, but not just non-violence towards each other, it's towards animals as well, and all sort of living beings. So ahimsa, and the in Sanatana Dharma, the the essence is also your relationship to nature. So environment conservation is a big deal, and in India, it's a very it's been around for so many years, but our relationship to our environment is very, very important. And today it kind of leads the way in many ways, with banning a lot of plastic and
Mm-hmm.
solar panels and kind of the greenery that exists. It's very green
Mm-hmm.
country. We're very lucky, and it's an agrarian country. That's why we have our sacred cow, because cows were the livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many farmers that gave us food and milk and so on. That's why it's predominantly vegetarian, and we certainly don't eat beef. And beef's uh, slaughter is banned in India.
Mm-hmm.
These are all good qualities that the whole world can take a leaf off, but instead you get these the so-called social justice people. Instead of talking about those things, they want to go on about caste system and blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
and just bringing down the whole thing, and really miss. They're not even looking at the whole thing in the right way. They got it upside down. So this is what I'm seeing. It's very kind of very obvious to me, and so on. But you're right. I think humanity and uh, respect to each other, to relationship with our environment, and also how we treat our animals and nature should be at the top of our priorities,
Mm-hmm.
and interconnectedness. And then I think that freedom, the mutual respect for faiths is important. And at the very end is prosperity and social programs and money and all that good stuff.
And unless there's some sort of paradigm shift, I don't see that happening anytime soon, as the dollar still remains the king of the world. And
You're right. I do see a paradigm shift. I actually see, when I see the West looking east a lot spiritually. I see a lot of people looking, people want to find themselves, people from all faiths, Christians or whatever others, Jewish people, they think, no, this is not it. There's another truth out there. They look at India and they come to India. They try to find themselves. Some
mm-hmm.
actually do find themselves. Some don't.
Like the
But I
Beatles.
think when you read, yeah, I think when you immerse yourself in this Indic thought, Hinduism is one part of it, but and yoga is one part, but it has many
Mm-hmm.
tenets, right? I think people who immerse themselves in that, they're finding a new reality, and that includes this ahimsa and respect and karma and all these beautiful things. So I think the paradigm shift is happening there by
Mm-hmm.
people who are looking maybe east, or it doesn't have to be India. It could be other wisdom um, sources that are out there that are teaching some ancient wisdoms and good things, and people are touched by that and they are incorporating that, and I see that happening on a global level.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I almost feel like Hindus, I think the world is becoming kind of very dharmic. It's going in that way without even. It's funny that all these, the monotheistic religions are big on conversions and preaching, but I feel like the world is actually moving more Indic and dharmic without anybody ever preaching to them because they're just kind of finding a different way of thinking and living that they find very appealing and that's very gentle and truthful.
Hmm.
And they like it and
Hmm.
they're kind of adopting it and it's better. I see a big shift in the world, in some
Voluntarily.
way. So
Yeah. There hasn't been any
well,
crusades in a
know,
little while.
beautiful. And I think that uh, it's a good thing. And there are people like myself who are maybe, I'm here, I see myself as a Dharma ambassador,
Hmm.
and not even religious, but just someone who's here, ambassador for peace and truth and wisdom. And I have access. I'm very lucky. Feel very privileged to be kind of born into a very spiritual family with good upbringing, and they taught me these great principles. And my lineage of my ancestors is deeply, I mean, is so ingrained in this wonderful ancient wisdom, and it's part of my blood, it's part of my DNA. I am a kind of a living embodiment of this Shakti energy out there in the world. I think part of my dharma is to be this manifestation of this dharmic knowledge in the world, and to be someone who maybe spreads this knowledge in a very kind of loving, peaceful way. I see. Yeah.
Well, we have had an excellent conversation. We've
Yes.
reached the longest episode.
3 hour mark,
Yeah,
right? Is it 3 hours? Oh my
it's
God.
actually been 3 hours, and I've got so many questions I didn't even get to ask. But I'd like to just kind of close this out with a couple more here, just to kind of give us a good conclusion here.
Yes.
Um, and one of those questions would be, do you have any, or what do you wish you would have known when you first started out in your journey of life? Just a brief kind of little bit of tips or things you've learned along the way, something you might have wished you would have known when you first started on your journey.
I think the most important lesson that I've learned, and the greatest advice I can give to anyone, is be your authentic self. Because be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Hmm.
I think people will love and respect you for you. They want you. They don't want you to be someone else. And I think we live in a world where everyone's trying to be someone else, and also goes down to culture too. Just be proud of who you are, and but be authentic, come from intention, come from purpose, do the right thing. I think your why should always be bigger than your what or how. That's
Okay.
so important. Think about, make sure your intention affects more people than just yourself. Set out to do something for the world. My whole message is about dharma, which is your purpose in life. Take the time to find out your true purpose and then fulfill it, because the whole world will conspire to make it happen. You just need to believe in yourself and believe in your gifts, and sort of just believe that it'll all work out, because it will. So I wish someone had told me to be as authentic as yourself and just believe in yourself and go for it. I ended up doing those two things naturally, but it wasn't something I was taught from the very get-go. And it might have, even in my own journey, I think I would have kind of, things would have been faster if someone had told me that up front. So that's sort of my message that I would like to give to anybody listening.
And yeah, I can definitely gel with that message there. And as far as any book recommendations, do you have a recommendation you'd like to give to the listeners?
My favorite book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho. It's a very simple book. It's a classic book. I love that book. It's about a boy who dared to follow his personal journey, and that's where the saying comes from, that when you uh, commit to your personal destination, the whole entire universe, cosmos, will conspire to make it happen, which is so true. Your world becomes magical because everything just kind of corrects itself so that you get what you want, because what you want is affecting the world at large. So I think that's my. I would recommend that book. They are. amazing speakers. And thinkers. I would recommend people, don't just go for the new writers and so on. I think find some of the ancient wisdoms, find, whether it's Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist. uh, there are some incredible authors out there. uh, Try to find those. They go to the source, go to something that's ancient.
Hmm.
If you get a chance, I would say read the Vedas, because they have uh, so much knowledge in them. But there's, the autobiography of a yogi is an amazing book. Deepak Chopra has great books. Sri Aurobindo is very good. Swami Vivekananda is very good. But Joseph Campbell is great as well. You have great Western, you know, uh, speakers too, and thinkers as well, Osho and so on. So, but
Hmm.
look around, try to find some. And Greek mythology I just love. So there's always truths to be found there.
Very good. And as far as any links that you would like to just promote or anything, I have a list here of some social media platforms. If you like, I'm just going to go ahead and post those up into the show notes for anyone who would like to learn more about anything that Pretty's up to. And is there anything that you'd like to just kind of throw out right here that for me to put in the show notes?
Yes. Thank you so much for posting the link. So guys, please connect. I love connecting with people. I am very engaging. I always respond to everyone's questions. You can find me on Facebook. I have my public profile page. Twitter is Preity Upala. Instagram is Preity U. I have my own YouTube channel. I have a ton of videos there. It's Preity Upala as well. My website preetyupala.com is it's going to be live soon. Please email me. It's missb.productions@gmail.com. But please reach out. And I just want to thank everyone for this amazing opportunity to share things that are valuable to me, things that I care about. And I think things are very poignant for the world at large today, for the global narratives that we're having. And these are important conversations. And I'm about the truth and facts. And I just continue to, be love and light. And I want to keep researching and sharing this wisdom with all of you. So reach out to me. And I look forward to coming back again on this amazing platform. So I want to thank you for having me, giving me this great opportunity to sort of talk about things that are relevant. And I hope to see all of you very soon.
You're very welcome. The pleasure has been all mine. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think that if we could all just have that kind of seeking truth and wanting to have a accurate worldview of things, despite our tribalism and our divisive human natures, I think we will have a much better world to look forward to. And thank you again for coming on the show. And the show notes will be on there on the page at clintonherrigstad.com/episodes/Preity Upala. That will be available Sunday when the podcast goes live on Apple Podcasts. So thank you again for appearing on the show, and I will look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Namaste. Thank you.